Welcome back to an audience of one in which we deliver spiritually uplifting and motivational content to individuals who need a reminder that they have worth, that they have value, and that they have a gift that they need to share with the world. And that no matter how many mistakes you've made, that it's never too late to make today the day that you change your life. Climbing mountains is an excellent hobby. It's a physical challenge, it's tough, it's beautiful, gets you into nature, gets you away from all the noise. It's a great way to relieve stress and improve your mental health. It's a great way to develop patience and perseverance and mental toughness, as well as all of the fitness benefits, all of which translates really well to the struggle that you have in front of you with regards to improving your life, improving your character, improving your relationship with God, and striving towards those goals that you have as a means of accomplishing that. Standing on top of a mountain gives you an amazing sense of accomplishment. It's a hard thing to do, and it trains you to do hard things in the future. It's fun to do with a group, but no one's going to put one foot in front of the other for you. And if you've got to do it by yourself, it's just as fulfilling. There are a lot of lessons that you can learn out on the trail, but the one that I want you to focus on is not falling for false summits. Now, when you're climbing a larger mountain, you're most certainly going to run into these. And this is when you're climbing up a large stretch of the mountain and you can see the top, maybe pretty far up, but you can see it. And it's a great feeling. Up until now, you've just been trying to get above the tree line where you can see anything. You're trekking through the forest, going through switchbacks. The trail just seems to go on and on. You check your map, you check your app, and you're only a couple of miles in. The more you check your location, the less you want to because you feel like your progress is going slow. But once you cross that tree line, that's a great feeling because for one, now you can see in almost all directions and the views are beautiful. You can finally see where you came from and it gives you some energy to move forward because it gives you some measurement of the progress that you've made. Then you get to these places where you can see the summit. The people above you may look tiny, but you can see where the top of the mountain meets the sky and you can see your final destination. Or so you think. This is the problem with a false summit. They exist on the mountains where a part of the mountain high above you obstructs your view from the actual mountain peak. Sometimes false summits just obstruct your view from additional false summits. You get to the top of what you thought was the summit, only to realize that you're not at the summit at all. Check your map, and you're halfway there instead of being there. Instead of recognizing your progress, you compare it to your previously perceived progress, and it's real easy to get devastated. Rather, it's hard not to be. You went from thinking you made it to wondering if you have the strength to do that a couple more times, because that's probably what's needed. What got you through the first false summit was thinking that it was the actual summit. Now you wonder if you can get past the next section of the journey, having a better idea of how difficult it's going to be without the motivation that you're almost there. When you're on a journey to personal improvement, there are a lot of metaphors inside of this example that can be applied to your struggle. In the very beginning, you may be fat, lazy, unhealthy, destroying your life, consuming mind-numbing content. You have to wake up and make the decision to make the climb in the first place. Making that decision to move, to make a change, is the first step long before you find yourself waking up early in the morning for that drive to the mountain. Then you find yourself there, before first light, walking into the wilderness. For many people, walking into the woods early in the morning when animal traffic is busiest and bear country can be intimidating. So is making the moves to change your life in the early period. Fastest way between 2 points is usually a straight line. Unfortunately, there are rarely straight lines on mountain paths, and there are rarely straight lines in life. Much like the switchbacks on a mountain, where you zigzag back and forth winding up the trail, you feel like it may be quicker to just cut straight through the woods. You wonder why they didn't make the trail that way in the first place. You wonder why are there no shortcuts in life? Why is it that the slow, difficult path through the wilderness, going back and forth, slowly up the mountain, tripping over rocks and roots, just happens to be the only path to success? But that's how life is. The path is a difficult one. And one of the most difficult parts of the climb up the mountain is when you think you can see the summit. Now, in the beginning, it can feel daunting. Depending on how long you've allowed yourself to wallow in your own misery, despair, depression, sins, failures, and transgressions, even after making the decision to climb the mountain, the beginning can feel so difficult. It's like setting out to trek the trail in the early morning hours before the sunrise. You don't want to get out of bed, and the darkness makes it feel scarier than it is. God knows what evil demons lying in wait in the darkness along the path. On the physical mountain, there are no mystical beasts lying in wait. Maybe some bears, but few people their first time out in the wilderness walking through the darkness truly feel comfortable. But this is how it feels. It's scary at first. Then as daylight kicks in, things don't seem as bad. It's still really difficult, but at least you're out of the darkness. You're still in the middle of the woods. You can't tell your progress. You have no idea how far you've gone. And then you pass the tree line. When you're going through your journey of self-improvement, if you just keep moving forward day after day, you're going to make progress and you're going to have success. And because of how many bad things have happened to you in your situation, when you do start to have success, it can seem a lot bigger than it actually is. Now, this isn't to discourage you from celebrating the little victories, but to understand that they're little victories. They just seem like enormous accomplishments when all you've experienced for years was devastating losses. Winning one game in an entire season feels like winning the championship when you haven't won a game in 5 years. Previously, we talked about creating a plan for success and a plan for setbacks, as well as not getting lulled to sleep by your success. We talked about those things because in those scenarios, typically people let their guard down and they start to fall into old habits. This is a little bit different. I want you to be prepared for those false summits or false arrival moments when you think you finally made a breakthrough only to find out that you plateau, or you find yourself deep in another grinding struggle immediately afterwards. The false summit is the perfect analogy for this because you're climbing. You're above the tree line. You've been having success. And then you think you can finally see your destination. This isn't a situation where you let your guard down, like we talked about with getting lulled to sleep by success, where you think that because you're doing good, you can rest up. To the contrary, in this situation, you see that summit and you start working harder because you feel like you're almost there and you're about to make it. You're probably more dialed in than ever, only to crest that horizon to see that you're not even halfway there. It was a false summit. And the next climb looks much longer and much more difficult. This can cause you to mentally check out because you were riding high on excitement. Now you just got the wind taken out of you because you realized you really hadn't made it nearly as far as you thought you had. This happens in life and it can happen in so many different ways. You start a project online, your engagement starts going through the roof. You continue growing your content like this and you'll be at 1 million subscribers in under a year. Then you hit a wall. Views, subscriptions, payments, engagement slow to a near halt. You thought you'd hit the point where you were going to be able to hit cruise control. Then you get smacked right in the face by reality that you weren't anywhere near the summit. In fact, you weren't even above the tree line. You're still back at the zigzag back and forth stage where the progress feels like it sputters on and off. Sometimes this comes in the form of just being ignorant about what's out there. You want to study a certain subject, academic or practical, and you learn a little bit, but you feel like you've learned a lot. You dive into the subject or the art, you try to practice what you've learned, only to realize it's way more complicated than you had initially thought. So you were encouraged by early progress because you were learning so much. And now you've come to the realization that this is going to be a lot harder than you had initially anticipated. It's like putting together a DIY project that you saw online and you said to yourself, I can do that. Until the plans go off the rails a little bit and you encounter problems that weren't part of the tutorial. Now your living room, your garage, or your backyard is a complete mess with a half-completed project that you don't feel like you can complete because you feel like you're in over your head. So do you give up? You're writing a book or scripting a video series, and at first the ideas are just flowing out of you. Next thing you know, you have so much content written out that you're excited that you're moving towards your goal, and you can see the actual progress that you're making. You think you can see the finished product until you start trying to make sense of all the random ideas and editing the timeline of thoughts into something coherent. And then it starts to dawn on you that getting your thoughts from your mind to the paper was like tying your shoes. The real work is going to be the editing process, which may take 3, 4, 5 times the amount of effort it did to put your ideas to paper. That's the real hike. You want to start a business online and you buy a course. You're getting all the information. Things are making sense. You can't believe it's this easy. Now all you have to do is take action. This is going to change your life. And your first product fails. So does your second, and your third, and your fourth. Now what? You thought you were almost at the end, but now you realize you're probably not far off the starting line. You train for a marathon. You've gone from a couch potato with a body of a pear to an athlete running 25 to 30 miles a week. You get to your first race and you can't finish, or you barely finish as you struggle to stay in the race. You see some old lady in her 70s passing you when your quads are cramping up. You went from thinking you were hot stuff, someone who could be competitive, to now realizing the world of running is much tougher than you thought. You went to thinking you were something, to now wondering if you even belong. You take boxing lessons and you're learning combinations. You're getting in hours of work on the heavy bag, on the double end bag, with the mitts. Your endurance has improved, and you take your first sparring session. They tell the other guy to take it easy on you, but to you it feels like you're fighting Mike Tyson. You went from thinking maybe you could perform in some amateur bouts, maybe a local tournament, Golden Gloves, to now questioning, do you even know how to fight? Again, you hit a false summit. You thought you were on the cusp of arriving, and now you're wondering how much farther you have to go. Are you cut out for this? Is this really what you want to be doing? Are you all about that life? These are really gut check moments because of the emotional swing from feeling like you're on cloud 9 to feeling like the wind just got sucked out of you. It can really be a test of your resolve and your sincerity to yourself. You have to expect these events, even look forward to them, because they are going to happen, and they are either going to cause you to crumble or they will help you to make you who you want to become. You have to realize that no one wins them all, unless they're ducking fights and only taking on challenges they know they can win. But the reality is that this happens to everyone. Know that no one is putting a highlight reel together of their failures or struggles. Everyone is showing you the successes. It's rare to see anyone advertise their hard work. And to be fair, They don't have time. They're busy working. But everyone who's trying to accomplish anything of great value is going to run into these moments where they think they've made it when they haven't. You see this happen in competitive sports all the time. A team or an individual is undefeated until they're not. How do they respond? You may spend some time thinking you're there due to the success you have. And if you allow these moments to get you too high on yourself, then when they turn out to be false summits, they're going to hurt even more. Now, there's one major difference between this analogy of false summits and your journey for self-improvement, character development, and actualizing your goals. And that is that the real goal is to strive through the process, not to attain a specific achievement. We're not looking to climb mountains. We're looking to be mountain climbers. It's just what we do. Reaching peaks is just a side effect. So although we may accomplish great feats along the way, the goal in the end is not to reach a specific summit, but rather to be the individual who continues to climb. And even when we reach one peak, we don't get caught up in the medals or the accolades we've received. Rather, we move right on to hiking the next peak. Part of the problem with these false summits is the idea of the arrival moment. You can't be doing what you're doing just for accolades. I mean, you can. Who am I to stop you? But everything we've talked about so far has been to put us in a position to become who we want to be as a person. And who you are as a person is not defined by the trophies or the medals or the possessions you've attained along the way. The accolades are just a byproduct of your work. They're not the goal in and of themselves, because you have to recognize that if you're chasing accomplishments, you may never achieve them. Or worse, you may end up achieving them, but they end up leaving you feeling empty. When you ran your first ultra in 2023, you got pulled from the race at mile 43 or so. And when they took your bib, the volunteer said, "I'm sorry you didn't succeed." Your first thought was, what the hell is he talking about? I just ran 43 miles in 12 hours through the mountains of Virginia in a tropical storm on an injured knee, 23 miles more than I'd run at any given time in the past 5 years, and I had a blast doing it. Didn't succeed. I crushed it. And that's because you had the attitude, not of, I'm here to earn a medal, but rather I'm here to push myself to be better. And you gave it your best. The desired result was not to cross the finish line, but to drive across the country and show up, despite the daunting task and the odds stacked against you. If you're striving to be someone in your character and in your effort and in your spirituality, then these goals that people chase are now just a means by which you express who you are as that person. And when you take this perspective, then you're able to accomplish that even if you don't achieve any specific goal along your way, because the purpose is becoming the one who strives in that effort. When you're caught up in the idea of the achievement itself, I need to be a championship athlete, and you get crushed by the reality that you're in your 30s or 40s and that ship sailed the first time you get smoked in an endurance race, what do you do? Do you give up? Do you quit? Do you say, oh, it was never meant to be? Maybe you dig deep and find the drive to put in even more effort than you did before. But if your goal is to strive to be an athlete, then these false summits are no longer an issue because you don't care where you are in the journey. You're just happy to be on one. It's kind of like the old saying, you're beating everybody who's still sitting on the couch. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that you settle for mediocrity. Far from it. You are still striving for excellence in all that you do. But that excellence isn't measured by what you can do compared to somebody else. Your excellence is compared to what you are capable of doing. In this way, when you hit a false summit or a plateau, in the greater scheme of things, this is just an opportunity to grow. It's what makes your story great. No great story is linear. There have to be challenges that throw the hero off the path, knocks him or her down to see how resilient they are and if they'll be able to recover. Rocky wasn't Rocky just because he wins, but because he kept getting back up. People who love to practice will almost always outperform those that hate it or do it only out of a desire to achieve the result it brings. Because you're not doing something just to accomplish an objective. You're doing it because it's who you are. You're in love with the process because of what it makes you become. One of the ways in which you protect yourself from getting crushed by these events is to never let yourself get too high or too low. Realize that these events are what they are. They're just challenges for you to overcome. And the bigger the challenge, the more opportunity you have to learn to grow from it. Recognize and believe in yourself that if you keep pushing forward, you will have successes along the way. Don't be shocked by them. And don't be shocked by the idea that it's going to get harder the more success that you have. So don't treat completing level 1 in the game like you're reading your name at the end of the top of the high score list. You're inevitably going to have different speeds of growth throughout your journey. There are going to be moments where you feel like you're speeding ahead, where you feel like you've made it, which are going to be met with at some point that metaphorical brick wall, where all progress is either outright stopped or it feels like you're moving through quicksand. To get through these, it's important to remember why you're doing what you're doing. because your intention for why you're on this journey is going to impact your ability to see it through. Is it about the journey itself or about the destination? Are you trying to cultivate yourself into a specific type of person? Or are you just aiming to hold up a trophy or earn some type of recognition? Is it that you want yourself, who you are, to be a success in your character and your work ethic? Or are you just aiming to have people talk about you and see you as successful? Because if all you're looking to do is create the perception of success so that people can celebrate you, first remember that those people really don't care about you. But even then, it's not difficult to pretend you're crushing it and having success at every turn. Nearly every social media profile is doing this. People stop selling bridges and they now sell courses. But if your aim is to be one who walks through the wilderness in the middle of the night, despite the trials, because it is the effort of striving to pass through the trials, because of what they turn you into, then you're succeeding by just showing up. The more difficult the path is, the more it is a testament to who you are and your commitment. Nobody puts up a picture of how they walked up a hill today, unless they were somebody who overcame being paralyzed in a tragic accident. We celebrate great achievements because they are difficult. The road is supposed to be difficult, and one of the difficulties placed in our way among many difficulties is the feeling of doubt and despair that hits you when you reach a false summit. Know that these are a part of the process and continue to push through them. If possible, start to look out for them and look forward to them. Get excited about the opportunity that they present you. Because it's at these difficult moments when you're truly able to fine-tune your character and to prove to yourself that you had no intention of just showing up to collect an award or to be seen or to be praised, but you were really committed to a personal process of development and that you're committed to seeing that process through.